I just have a severe addiction to soft hackles. It's one of my favorite things to tie, favorite things to fish. And I've got about 1 billion hen capes at home because of it. Yeah, so this is the Muskrat. It's sort of a wet fly / nymph style fly. I kind of think of it as just a general attractor. It doesn't look like anything really specific in nature. It just looks like a lot of different insects. It's a great fly for trout. That's what it was designed for. But also it's great for warm water fishing too. I think the fish almost take this as a small fry or a bait fish just as much as they do an insect. So in the vise I've got a Lighting Strike SN1 in a size 10. And I went ahead and put about a dozen wraps of size 015 lead-free wire on that for weight. For thread on this one, I'm going to go ahead and just use some Danville 6/0, kind of in an olive. And I'm going to get that started on the hook in front of that lead, move that forward a little bit, and then using the tag end of my thread here, I'm going to actually use that to jump my thread back behind the lead. And I want to make sure I build up a little bit of a thread ramp just to help get the diameter of what's on the hook shank up to roughly the diameter of the lead. And then I'll come back forward and do the same thing in front. We're just kind of pre-building the taper or the underbody on this. I don't really need to completely cover the lead. I'm just kind of putting it in place so it's not going to spin around on the hook. And to that point, you could absolutely put some glue on there if you want to. For a tail on this fly, we're going to use some hen and grizzly, just hen chicken. This is one of the longer feathers off the side of the cape. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to grab about a dozen or so fibers. And the trick here is to hold on to the fibers with your finger and pull the stem away. Don't pull the fibers away from the stem, pull the stem away from the fibers. And I'm just going to put a short tail in here. I'll use thread torque to position that. And then go ahead and roll it right up on top of the hook using my thread pressure. And I can wrap that down, and I want that to kind of terminate roughly at the end of the lead. That wasn't the prettiest job of wrapping down the materials, but it's going to work. And then we'll just go ahead and try to, again, work on that taper or that underbody just a little bit. If you have a better underbody, you're going to have a better overbody. Now, I've seen this tied both ways to where it uses a rib and where it doesn't. I don't put a rib on mine. I like mine to get really picked out and buggy. But if you wanted to, you could throw one on. For dubbing, what I've done is I've just grabbed a patch of muskrat fur and a dubbing rake, and I've just scraped some of that off. So I've got a little patch of muskrat dubbing here. And we're going to start to build in a tapered body using just a little bit at a time. Now this is a natural fiber, so it's going to adhere better to polyester thread, but we're going to use what we got. And you could absolutely put some wax on there if you want to. I really don't use dubbing wax unless I'm tying in a dubbing loop, but personal preference. Okay, so let's go ahead and start to build that taper from the rear of the fly. I want to wrap all the way back to my tail. Got a little thin spot in my dubbing, but there we go. And I'm going to need some more. Now again, this is muskrat. It was harvested locally, but if you don't have muskrat, go ahead and use hare's ear, squirrel, whatever you do have. Okay, so now that I've reapplied my dubbing, I'm just going to go ahead and continue to build that thorax up. And I want to stop and leave myself about an eye-length space right there. This is where my soft hackle is going to get tied in. But before I tie my soft hackle in, I'm just going to grab a dubbing brush and kind of rake that out. So let me get my thread out of the way so I can get the bottom. There we go. We'll get it nice and buggy looking, so it almost looks like a scud or a sow bug, or like I said, a little bit of a bait fish. Let my thread untwist, and then I'm going to come in with a grizzly hen hackle. So not the same feather that I used for the tail. This one's a little bit narrower. And when it comes to tying in soft hackle, you've got some options. You can tie it in by the base, or you can tie it in by the tip. I tend to tie soft hackles in by the tip on most patterns, but I'll do a future video on one where we tie it in by the base. So I'm just going to stroke those fibers back to expose a tie-in point. Go ahead, clip that off. I'll grab this with my hackle pliers. Oops, got to get that by the tip. So again, I'll stroke those fibers back, hold them in place, and then using that small tie-in point, I'm just going to anchor that right to the top of the hook. And then we're going to go ahead and pick this up, and we're going to use our fingers to fold these fibers back before we start wrapping it. A big mistake I see when people wrap soft hackles is they don't fold the fibers, or they don't allow that stem to lead the wraps. And what happens, I'll just go ahead and show you, is the feather ends up going like this, and those hackle fibers go everywhere, and then they have to try to stroke them all back, wrap them with thread. If you just take a second to do it the right way, you're not going to have to do that. They'll just wrap right in place. Sure, that feather stem is going to want to spin on you, but just keep working with it. You'll get it. Keep folding those fibers back. Use that leading edge to go to the front. We'll do one more wrap. There we go. And then when I go to tie that in, as I lift up my thread, I'll put a 90-degree bend into the stem. That just kind of opens up a nice little pathway for my thread to go through, so I'm not trapping down as many fibers. And then after doing 2 wraps, what I like to do is go ahead and pull that back and try to catch that stem again with another wrap, just for security's sake or durability. And at that point, you can either break or cut that off. We've already got our thread head partially built, but I am going to put a few more wraps on there. I think on these older wet flies, a bigger thread head just looks a little bit more classic in my opinion. I'll go ahead and take the twist out of my thread. And I'm going to whip finish. So again, using a back to front whip finish, a little bit more secure. Ooh, that thread is still twisted up. I'm glad we got some of that out. Draw that tight. We're going to tighten our thread and remove it. So because I wrapped the soft hackle properly, I didn't have to grab all those fibers and force them back. They were just already in the right place. From here, what I would do is I would go ahead and I would put a couple drops of lacquer on that, letting it cure in between. You can use UV resin or glue or whatever you want, but that's kind of the classic way to tie it. So again, I think that they eat that as a little minnow or fry imitation as much as they eat it as a bug. You can adjust the colors on it a little bit, tie with different colors of hackle, but I think you're going to find that the trout and the panfish really like to eat this fly.